Welcome to Buffer from YouTube channel. This is Sahil Mhatre, and this is our first video in this series of vulnerability elevation. So our first topic is SQL injection to LFI to RCE. So I will be showcasing some techniques through which we can elevate SQL injection to local file inclusion and the file inclusion to remote code execution. So 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 there are some basic requirements to watch this video, which are like you should know the basics of SQL injection, how SQL injection works, how basic SQL injection payloads works, and all. Also, secondly, you should know the basics of LFI, that how exactly local file inclusion works, and third is um, that you need a root or admin access to the database. Uh, It means that if you have found out the SQL injection flaw in a web application, the user who is executing the SQL statements should be a root or admin account, which can or any account which have access to some prior files through which we can get RCE. I will explain what exactly it is in the practical session. So it's time for the practical. Let's move on to the practical. Alright, so I will be using DBWA for this practical session, and so this particular parameter over here, user ID, is vulnerable to SQL injection. So right now the security level is low in this lab. So I want you guys to see the SQL the code. Okay, so this is the query which will be executed in the backend. This particular query will be executed by root account, which is the basic requirements which I was talking about. So I will show you guys how exactly when we will execute the query, execute the payload, how exactly the payload will, uh, exactly the backend query would look like. So this ID, where whatever we put in this ID parameter will be injected over here. So for instance, I have already written a SQL injection payload over here, and I will just copy and paste it over here. Okay. And so it will particularly look like this. So as you guys can see, I have added a comment over here. So two these two characters will get blocked. Sorry, not blocked. It will get commented. So let's try this payload on our vulnerable website. I will paste it and I will submit it. Okay, so you guys can see the user is uh, mm, the uh, username is username, which this particular username have root access. I mean privileges of root, and the version is MariaDB 10.11.6 MariaDB. MariaDB is almost similar to MySQL. So initially, I will tell you guys how to get LFI using this payload. I will just modify this payload and write another function over here, which is load underscore file. This is a function through which we can read files in MySQL and MariaDB DBMS. So we can read some files like etc password. etc password contains names of the users which are on the machine. Okay, so let's paste it and see whether we can get the file or not. And boom, we got the file. So the file starts from here. So as on every Linux system there is a root account by default, so we can see it is over here. And at the end, we have the current user on which I'm logged in. The current user is Kali. Also, John is a user I have created on my machine as well. So this is how you can get LFI. Now we can also read some other files, other sensitive files like host. We can't, by the way, we can't read the file shadow etc/shadow. etc/shadow file contains the um, hashes of the users. Okay, something. Okay, who I turned road as at the last. Okay, so you guys can see we can read the host file. So this was how exactly you can get LFI. But what about remote code execution RCE? Mm. So in order to get RCE, what you can do is you can read the default. There are two ways to get RCE by reading the file. One is you can just, if you know the usernames, you can just read the private SSH key. Hmm. Like the private SSH key is in the folder of home slash username, which in this case it is Kali, and there is a hidden folder named dash.sh in which there will be a private key which will be named as id underscore RSA. Hmm. Right now, right now as I have not enabled SSH login on my Kali machine, so this private key ID RSA is not generated. Hmm. So if I will try to read it, I won't be able to read it. It's not generated. Hmm. So if I will try to read it, I won't be able to read it.
And it's rare that you will be having access to the file named as id underscore RSA because by default the permission of this file is 600 through which only the creator of this file can read it. Okay. So it will be a very rare scenario that you can read this file. So mostly this particular technique will be useful for you in CTFs because in CTF they just uh, intentionally allow you to read this file in order to solve the CTF. Also, some in some rare instance you can get access to this file if the administrator has accidentally allowed other users to access this file to read this file. Okay, so let's move forward to the second technique through which we can get RCE. Uh, in the second technique, what we will do is we will use the SQL injection to write a file in a custom location where we want. So what we will do is we will write a PHP file in the default location of the Apache web server, which is slash var slash www slash html. So I have already written the payload over here for it. So what this payload is doing is uh, this payload is taking input from here, and whatever the output of this columns will be, it will be stored to this particular file known as rce.php, and, and whatever we will write here like abcd, it will be stored in rce.php. So what we can do is we can write a PHP code over here to get a remote code execution. So for that I have already wrote a PHP code through which we can get remote code execution. So what this PHP code is doing is it is taking cmd as a parameter, and in this parameter named cmd we will write our command, the Linux commands which we want to execute, and that parameter will execute the system commands using this shell exec function in PHP, and it will just give the output of those command and uh, as a result. So I will just make this code in one line so that we won't have an issue while executing over the code. So let's just copy this and paste it over here. Now let's try to execute this code. Okay, we have done this. The code has been executed. Now let's just access our PHP file that we just wrote with the command cmd parameter. Okay, we see that there is an error over here. Just ignore that error, and actually the uh, file has been uploaded. So we can we can execute commands, whatever commands we want. So we can see that that we are currently in the HTML directory, the default location of Apache server where Apache server stores the files. And this one which is appearing over here is actually the other the other input which we gave in the payload, which was one. Let me show you guys. This is the one. You can write null over here. It might work or it might not. I'm not sure about it. So so right now we can execute commands on the system. So so if you want to get a reverse shell, then just go to rev shell and generate a reverse shell using it. Okay. Yeah, I will keep the IP as localhost 1, as I am doing this locally, and the port should be 80. And what we will do is actually we will use bash to execute it. Mm, so we will echo it out over here, and we will pass it to base64. So so what this particular command will do, it will echo the it will pass the input to base64, and base64 will decode it and it will um, pass this particular argument, not argument, sorry, the decoded payload to bash, and bash will execute it. So we have to just first let me start the rev shell. Uh, start listening on port 8080. So I'm using RL wrap. RL wrap just gives some good. Um, so Let me paste it over here and let's see. Okay, yeah, we got the shell. As you guys can see, we have got the shell on the system, and by using RRF, the uh, some I get some extra features by using RRF. The shell is stable. I don't have to like elevate it into a TTY shell. Alright, that was how exactly you can get RCE using SQLi. And secondly, if the targeted machine is running on Windows, then there are high chances that it will be running a different DBMS, which will be most likely MS SQL. And in that case, you you will have to use some different SQL queries. Like for example, this particular query can execute system commands. If you find SQL injection, then just use this query and insert whatever command you want to insert over here. And, and by default, this particular command is disabled, so you will have to log in into the you will have to log in into the terminal and in the SQL MS SQL database, and you will have to enable this particular query known as xp underscore command cmd shell. After this xp underscore command shell is enabled, you can execute this query. So when you will be elevating your SQLi to LFI uh, while attacking on a MS SQL database, you can use this particular query to read any file. Like you can just write any file destination over here, and you will get the file content as the output. And you will be asking yourself that what sensitive files you can read on Windows. So I have made a list of what are the sensitive files on Windows, and also it depends whether the database user have access to those files or not. Same with the same with the MySQL and MariaDB. It depends whether the user have the database user have access to the files or not. Then only we can read those files. So initially, I will give you guys the idea that uh, in most cases, the backend server on Windows will be IIS server, and you will get the database credentials on this file over here, web.config. And in rare cases, it could be XAMPP. So there are some particular file will contain the server details, like how many websites are hosted on one server and some other stuff. And secondly, one more important thing is you can read the SAM backup file. The SAM, on the SAM backup file, you can get the hashes of the users mm, which are on the machine. And that's it. This is the end of the video. So thanks for watching this video.